Hello, everyone. Welcome to Absolute Falcon Cinema. I'm your host, Caleb, and in case y'all are new here, this is the place where I talk about movies, and I hope y'all enjoy my insights. For this episode, I thought I would do a little bit of a change of pace here. The past couple episodes, I have been doing a lot of rankings and lists of movies. I've been going over tons of movies, talking about multiple films at a time. But today, I thought I would really hone it in and focus on one particular movie and review that movie and talk about it in depth. And it is a movie I saw last night, and it is a movie called Boyhood. And in case y'all haven't heard of that, it is a movie that came out around 10 years ago, 2014. It's directed by Richard Linklater, who is a acclaimed director who has directed other movies such as School of Rock, and it stars Ethan Hawke and a bunch of other actors. And in case y'all are unfamiliar with it, the whole point of the movie is that they did a spin on the classic coming-of-age story, and they did this by literally aging alongside the cast and crew. So this film took a total of 12 years to make, and it follows a boy living out his childhood, and as he grows older, the whole cast and crew ages along with him. So we get to see him live his life and see the same actor portray this character throughout multiple years. So we see him age physically, and we get to see all of the actors around him do so as well. So it's a really neat concept, something that I haven't really seen in a movie before, where it's filmed along a long period of time. And I think it was executed fairly well. I really enjoyed the direction that the director took with making this project. Originally, I was expecting that the style of how they filmed the movie would change over time, over the years, because as it started 12 years ago, 12 years before its release date, so that would be around 2002, the movies looked way different in 2002 than they did in 2014. So what I was expecting is that the style of filmmaking would evolve over time as the movie goes on. But I was actually proven wrong. The direction is very consistent. It's a very focused project. And even though the time goes by, there is still that concise direction inputted by the director of photography and the director and the screenwriters in order to provide a focused story. And I think that was really impressive, especially with a movie of that caliber where you're filming it over 12 years, to have it remain that consistent and that maybe not predictable, but that concise is not a small feat. There, over time, as you watch more movies from different time periods, just different decades, you start to observe the changes in how it's filmed and how it is, how it's written, and all of those things come into play, especially when you're talking about long periods of time in cinema. But Boyhood sort of proves that wrong by implementing this specific style. The shaky cam sort of direction of the filmmaking is consistent throughout. And yes, some aspects do change over time. For example, when the boy actually grows up, we start to pull back a little bit. And there's a lot of close-ups, and a lot of the way that they block the characters sort of stays the same over time. But as he ages, as he grows up, the world sort of gets bigger around him. And we see that portrayed through the camera. There's a lot of wide shots of him driving down the road, or going to a city and looking over the sunrise. And it's a really unique way to explore the act of growing up and the way that the world changes around you as you mature. And I can say that it's true for not only the main character, the guy whose name in the film is Mason, but also the characters around him. He has an older sister, and she is also a child at the beginning of the movie who slowly ages over time. And the parents who noticeably age, Ethan Hawke in particular, his aging is quite noticeable, but in the way that he ages really, really well in the movie. I was really impressed. One of the top Letterboxd reviews I read for this movie is like, Ethan Hawke gets progressively sexier as this film goes along. And honestly, I agree. It's surprising how well an actor can age, where it's like he looks better like 12 years later than he did at the beginning of the movie. But yeah, it's really interesting to see all of these characters grow and develop. And I mean, it's obvious that they're following a script that portrays these complex characters, but it's also really clear in their performances, the way that they remain sort of their core self, but as they grow up, as they age, they start to develop a little bit more. Like, going back to Ethan Hawke's character, he really changes from a like a progressive, sort of rebellious guy in his 20s to a more devout Christian living with his family and living out in the rural area of Texas. And it's interesting to see that characters grow naturally over time and change, and it mirrors real life people evolving over time super well. I think that the way that the screenplay in particular mirrors real life is very intentional in the film. A lot of these people are complex, and they are less of caricatures and more like real people. It's trying to convey real life as much as possible. And I know some people might find that boring, but I honestly found it to be a really inspiring choice, and it really makes the movie stand out from other films that I've seen lately, where the characters are more like extreme versions of what they represent. And no, in this movie, they act like real people. They act like real evolving people, and it adds a sort of grittiness to the film, but also a heightened sense of realism, which makes the emotions that are felt by the characters feel way more visceral to us as the audience. And I thought I thought that overall experience was pretty cool. I experienced that very little in movies because I'm not really seeking out realism. I'm trying to sort of escape my real life to watch movies. It provides me a sense of escapism. But with Boyhood, it really hit close to home in certain aspects, especially when it came to the boy's adolescence and the way that he sort of finds himself as he's living out his life. I found that the way that he grapples with his sexuality, his social appearance, and his overall demeanor and how it changes over time, I thought that I related to that a lot, especially going throughout like middle school and high school, and always being around so many people and feeling that I have to like change myself in order to fit in with others, but also keep that sense of who I really am. And that sort of balance appears a lot in this movie. And that was one of my favorite aspects of the story. And the family that this movie follows is very dysfunctional. There's a lot of trouble with the Mason's mom in particular. She divorced Ethan Hawke's character a while back, and now she's getting married to a bunch of these other guys who aren't the kindest people in the world. They can be very aggressive. Sometimes they can be downright dangerous, as they're like alcoholics and very abusive. But the way that the mom finds herself and tries her best to raise her kids despite the fact that she is getting in relationships with these dangerous people, it creates a constant conflict throughout the story. It's really raw and very visceral, and it doesn't feel staged at all because, again, this movie is trying to replicate real life as much as possible. And the naturalistic ways that the characters interact, the way that the mom over time is realizing, hey, I shouldn't, I'm too, I'm not, what am I trying to say? I'm not, she's realizing that she doesn't need these guys in her life that are abusive, that are treating her so poorly. And her journey of sort of coming back to realizing that she is more independent than she realizes, I found to be quite powerful. And especially, I'm thinking of the ending scene in the film where she is thinking so existentially, like, I'm just going to pack it up soon, I'm going to die. And her son is like, you're thinking too much into the future. You have so much more life to live. Because from his perspective, he just started, because he just became an adult. So he's just starting to evolve into the real world. And his perspective is sort of what makes his mom sort of realize that life is passing her by. But the son encourages her by saying that, hey, you still have a lot of life to live, much like me. And you don't know what's going to happen. And there's this common theme throughout the story that we really don't know what is happening. We don't know. Everybody acts like they have a certain direction of where they want to go with their lives. But in reality, we don't know what we're doing. We are directionless in this world that tries to steer us into certain directions, wants to fit us in some boxes. But humans weren't made for boxes like that. They were made to evolve over time and change and grow and develop and never stop learning new things and never stop finding ourselves and finding out our self-confidence about how we live our lives amongst other people. And the film explores these things within the relationships that Mason has with other people, particularly his father and his sister and his multiple love interests. And it's really the story and the way that it replicates real life hits way harder than a film with a different sense of characterization. And I think this has a lot to do with the performances. It has a lot to do with the direction, a lot to do with the screenwriting. And that is a really remarkable achievement. I'm repeating myself a little bit here, but it really is as impactful and as big of an achievement as I am letting on. That sort of way of filmmaking is something I've never seen before, and something that not only was pulled off, but it was pulled off super well in the way that it was done in Boyhood. So I got to give it props for that. And the way that the story evolves around the characters is really incredible. And really, those are really all my thoughts on the film. I will say I have heard some complaints from people that the movie is a little long and the pacing is not usually super even, which is another aspect of replicating real life. Sometimes our moments in life go by a lot slower than other moments. And the way that this film progresses can be a little uneven, sort of like that. But I think that as long as you give it the patience like I did, I think that you will have a good time. I didn't really know where the movie was going to end because of that sort of directionless sort of theme. And I mean, I don't want to say it excuses getting bored throughout a long film. Maybe it's just my preferences. I like to watch longer films, but it's not for everyone. I will say that it's very it's very sad at sometimes, very frustrating, but in the end, it's a very beautiful work of art in a way that it follows these characters and portrays these characters as real people. So, yeah, this Boyhood really impressed me for the most part. I will say maybe it's not like, I don't know, the greatest movie I've seen this year or whatever. I've definitely seen better films that I've enjoyed more, but I do have to give it props for the achievement that or for the achievement of making a movie of this scale and following it for this long. I think you can't really deny the craftsmanship on display. It's very, very impressive. So yeah, those were my thoughts of Boyhood. And I highly recommend it for anyone who wants a coming of age story with a little bit of a twist and a movie that sort of reminds them a lot of real life. I recommend checking out Boyhood. And thank you for listening to me talk about this film. I had a really fun time watching it, and had a really fun time discussing it here. And be sure to follow me on Instagram. My Absolute Falcon Cinema podcast is under the name Caleb the Blue Writer. And I really enjoy doing these podcasts. I love posting stuff, and I notify people every time I have a new podcast episode so be sure to follow me, and in case you want to see more. And if you don't, that's fine. But thank you for people who have tuned in. This has been some Absolute Falcon Cinema. Boyhood is a great film, and I highly recommend it. All right. Take care, y'all. I will see you in the next one.